Okay, our next video in our series of integer operation videos is going to be over adding integers. And remember, integers is the set of positive whole numbers and their opposites, right? So we're only specifically talking about integers today. The first thing that we want to talk through is the definition for a zero pair. So that's what we're going to write. Zero pair. A zero pair is a whole number and its opposite whose sum is zero. Whole number and its opposite whose sum is zero. So we're going to bring in our integer chips in just a minute, but what I want to kind of remind you is we're going to use red for negative and we're going to use yellow for positive, okay? So for instance, if I had one red and one yellow, one red would represent -1, one yellow would represent +1, and when I put -1 and +1 together, they cancel out and they make a zero pair, right? A whole number and its opposite whose sum is zero. So this would be +1 plus -1 is 0. I could do the same thing. There's two positives and two negatives. So this would be +2 plus -2. Each one of these come together. They make a zero pair. +2 plus -2, the answer would be 0, okay? So we're gonna keep that in mind. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is draw, and if you have these colors, I would encourage you, I'm gonna draw myself a little representation of a zero pair, okay? This is a zero pair. We can also write an algorithm, or we can write the actual mathematical zero pair. So let's do an example. We just did +1 and -1. We talked about +2 and -2. Let's talk about maybe +8 plus -8. +8 plus -8. That would also be a zero pair. So before we get into adding integers, we definitely need to make sure that we understand these terms here, and then we'll use them as we go. So let's go ahead and I'm going to draw a line down the middle of my paper, because basically what happens, there's two types of integer addition problems. One of them is when the signs are the same. So one of them is when you have same signs, and the other is when you have different signs. We're going to talk about both of these because they're a little bit different, but every single problem that we're doing today is an adding integers problem. We may have to do a little bit of side work to do that addition, but every single thing today is an addition problem based on the sign that's in the problem. So let's start with same signs. It's a little bit easier. Anytime you see integers that have the same sign, you're going to group them. You're going to group them together, okay? So let's just talk really quickly using our integer chips, and then we'll draw. I'm hoping you're drawing this with me in your journal. Let's say we have 4 negatives, and we have another 3 negatives. 4 and 3, okay? 4 and 3. Hopefully you can see this on your paper, okay? We got 4 negatives and 3 negatives. And if I'm looking to group these together, what I need to look for are zero pairs, okay? Remember, a zero pair up here was when one positive and one negative come together and their sum is 0. Well, there's no zero pairs over here, right? So there's nothing to make a zero pair. There's nothing to cancel out. So all that we do here is we just group them together. So -4 and -3 would be -7, okay? This should be review from 6th grade. So we're just gonna draw that in our journal. So let's do our 4 negatives, 2, 3, 4, plus our 3 negatives. So this is -4 plus -3. There's no 0 pairs to cancel out, so our answer is -7. Okay? Easy peasy. I'm gonna go ahead and draw my line, and we'll do our next example. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be the hardest question you've probably done in the longest time, so if you're watching this video, you need to just brace yourself, okay? It's gonna be really, really difficult. You ready? I'm gonna have 3 positives, 2 more positives. Oh man, I don't know what to do. I'm just kidding, right? This is +3 plus +2. So I just want to prove to you, we've been doing this for a very long time. We've been doing integer addition. We just called it integer addition. We called it whole number addition, right? So +3 plus +2 would be +5. When we group them together, there's no 0 pairs. Same thing, we're gonna go ahead and 1, 2, 3, plus 1, 2. Okay, so 3 plus 2 equals 5. Again, this is just to prove to you that the rule is the same. What's gonna happen in about a week, you're gonna say a positive plus a positive is a negative. Isn't that funny? When we're adding, if they have the same sign, we just group them together and they make a bigger group of positives, right? So just be really careful. Okay, next example, we're gonna do without the integer chips because we're not always gonna be able to use them, especially in 7th grade when we start to have really yucky numbers. We're gonna have to be really careful with that. So let's do -5 plus -13. We talk a lot about what team these numbers are on. They both have the same sign, negative and negative. They're on the same team, so you group them together. That's our rule. Same sign, you group them. So what I would do, I'm gonna say, okay, 13 plus 5, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that means I have 18 of them. They're on the same team, they have the same sign. So all I'm doing is grouping them together to make a bigger team of negatives, right? This would be 5 reds, this would be 13 reds. They would come together to make even more, a bigger group of red, bigger group of negative. So again, same sign, group. Same sign, group. Okay, last one, we'll do a little bit bigger numbers just so that we can prove it works. -187 plus -33. Notice I'm putting parentheses around my numbers. It's really just to keep this from being confused with a subtraction sign. Okay, that's the only reason I'm putting these parentheses. So -187, -33, are they on the same team? Do they have the same sign? If they do, I'm gonna group them together. So that means I'm gonna take 187, I'm gonna put the other 33 red integer chips with it, 7, 8, 9, 10, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 220. I had 187 reds here. I had 33 reds here. Did any of those make a 0 pair? They did not, right? All they did was they all came together to make a big old group of 220 negatives. So if you're grouping them together, they still have the same sign at the end. So -220. Okay? All right, let's look at different signs. Let's look at what happens when you have numbers with different signs. Okay? So numbers with different signs, we're gonna use the term battle. And I wanna explain to you what that means mathematically, okay? So let's do an example first though. So let's say we have 2 positive chips, 2 positives, and we have 4 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4. You'll notice at the very beginning, some of these are gonna group up and make a 0 pair, right? So these would group up and make a 0 pair. These would group up and make a 0 pair. And whatever's left over is my final answer. So you can probably see the final answer in your head, right? So let's go ahead and draw this on our paper. I do want you to have this in your journal, so make sure you're drawing this. That one was positive 2 plus negative 4. Okay, positive 2 plus negative 4. At this point, what we want to do is we want to cancel, before we get our answer, we're going to cancel out the 0 pairs. There's a 0 pair. There's a 0 pair. What's left over is negative 2. Okay? Let's talk about mathematically what's happening. What you're going to do when you have different signs and you're adding, again, this is an addition problem, but what we have to do, because we have to take out our 0 pairs, well, what operation do we have to do when we take something out? Probably thinking subtraction, right? Is this a subtraction problem? No. Am I doing a tiny bit of subtraction within the problem? Yes. So is it a subtraction problem? No. Do I have to take some things out to solve this addition problem? Yes, I do. So we're going to subtract their absolute values and remember from our yesterday lesson, the absolute values are always positive. So we're just subtracting these two numbers as if they were positive. And then, here's the important part, we're going to take the sign of the number with the largest absolute value. That's a lot of mathy terms, and we're going to go through it the math way, and we're going to go through it using our term battle, because I think that's really going to be helpful, okay? So let's think about it this way. We subtracted these absolute values. So what we did is we took, there's 4 negatives, so we just took 4. We took it as if it was positive, right? Because absolute value is always positive. We subtracted 2. We had 2 left over, right? That's our 2 left over. Then we took the sign of the number with the largest absolute value. Well, which one of these numbers is farther away from 0? This one. So if this number is farther away from 0, then our answer is going to be a negative. Okay? Here's how we talk about it when we use the term battle, because I really think this is going to be helpful. If positive people and negative people were battling against each other, at the beginning of this battle, which team would have won this battle? Well, there's more negative soldiers, so the negative team would have won. Okay? That's what this means right here. This statement, take the sign of the number with the largest absolute value, that just means which team would have won the battle. Do you need to be familiar with this? Absolutely. This is the mathematical vocabulary. However, if this strategy helps you, absolutely use it. Okay? Let's put it into another example and see if that's helpful. Next example, we're going to do 3 positives. So I'm just going to show you with my chips and then we'll draw it. 3 positives plus 2 negatives. So 3 plus negative 2. You might be able to see in your head what the answer is going to be, right? You can already see some 0 pairs there. So let's go ahead and draw. Positive 3 plus negative 2 positive 3 plus negative 2. Let's talk through it both ways, right? The mathematical way says to subtract their absolute values. The absolute value of 3 is 3. The absolute value of negative 2 is 2. So I subtract 3 minus 2 and I get 1 left over. And it says take the sign of the number with the largest absolute value. Well, which one of these numbers is furthest from 0? This one. So my answer would be positive 1. okay? Let's go back to our battle strategy. If you have 3 positives, 2 negatives, right? This is a 0 pair, this is a 0 pair. Well, look at that. Isn't that what we took out anyways? So I have my 0 pairs that I'm taking out. So same thing, 3 minus 2 is 1. And which team would win this battle? At the beginning, which one had more soldiers? Well, the positive team had more soldiers. So my answer is positive. Mathematically, 3 has a larger absolute value. So my answer is positive. Okay, let's do one without the chips this time. Just an example. 76 plus negative 132. Okay, before we even start this problem, it is an addition problem, but are they on the same team? Again, if they're not on the same team, if they have different signs, positive and negative means there are different signs, then I have to battle, right? I can tell before which team's gonna win here. Which team has more soldiers? 76 positive soldiers or 132 negative soldiers? Hopefully in your head, you already know that the negative team wins. That means my answer is gonna be negative. Mathematically, negative 132 is way farther from 0 than 76, and that's why my answer is gonna be negative. So what it says, if you have to battle, then you're gonna do a teeny tiny bit of subtraction, teeny tiny bit of subtraction. Not even worried about the signs right now. I'm just trying to figure out how many 0 pairs am I taking out, right? That same process here that we did here, I'm just doing it with subtraction instead of the chips. So 3 becomes a 2, 12 minus 6 is 6. Gotta borrow again. 12 minus 7 is 5. So 132 minus 76, there's 56 things left over after the battle. And the team that won, there's negative 56. So that means there's 56 red chips left over at the end of that battle. Okay? Same thing. They did not have the same sign, so I battled them. Remember, battle just means I'm going to do a little bit of subtraction, and then I'm going to figure out which team wins. Okay? Again, this should all be review from 6th grade. All be review from 6th grade. We're going to continue to practice it and really reinforce when we get to equations as well. So hopefully this is just a review for you, and we'll move to subtraction tomorrow.